Geeks Assembled, and today we are talking a movie sequel of a TV series. This is Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, or The Wrath of Khan, as Beef Dad has just corrected me. So we will go around the group for opening thoughts on this. As I say, it's a sequel to a TV episode from 1967 with the character Khan returning, played by Ricardo Montalban. So we'll go to Beef Dad, seeing as he's grinning insanely. What's your opening thoughts, Beef Dad?
I'm grinning insanely. It's very, very good. It's very well written. The storyline is absolutely excellent, and the acting was absolutely spot on. There were so many things happened during this, and the finding Khan on a planet, and the planet is not like the planet that they had stranded him on, and the planet is now a desert with howling winds and everything, because the local planet, the planet next to it, had exploded and completely screwed everything up. And yeah, it's just very, very good, very, very well acted. Ricardo Montalban playing Khan in this. I mean, he's quite a few years older, but he's so good. He's so tough and so evil in this, really. It's wonderful. It's nice to see a female Vulcan, which you see in this, played by Kirstie Alley, playing Sarvik. And I always expect someone to turn around to her and say, can I have a beer? But of course, nobody ever does. And you have the whole of the crew for this one, where you didn't have the whole of the crew for the one, for the original one, the original television serial one. You've got all of them in this, and they are all such a joy. The one thing I was a bit disappointed in, and oddly enough, not just in this one, but also in the television one, is that the nurse wasn't there. And of course, the nurse, as we all know, was Gene Roddenberry's wife. And she was just so very good. And I really enjoyed it when she was on screen. But yeah, the special effects for this were pretty damn good, especially the spatial ones. The ones out in space. I love their special effects. And of course, on this one, what happens? Oh yes, they go and hide in a nebula. Everybody hides in nebulas in space. We all know that. It happened in Star Trek, the series. It happened in Star Trek, the films. It happened with like The Next Generation. It also happened several times in Voyager that I can recall. So, if you're ever having a problem, hide in a nebula.
Yeah, usually you can find the Geeks Assembled in a nebula as well, We're right in the centre of a nebula. And talking of nebula, Stephen Price.
This is the greatest Star Trek movie ever made. It's always, out of all of the movies they've made, this is the one I always go back to rewatch. The guy that played Ricardo Montalban, is it? Taban as Khan was totally brilliant. I read his major complaint was that he was never face to face with Shatner for a scene in the movie. The effects were great for the time the film was out. The biggest scene for me was the best scene for me was where Khan reveals himself to Chekhov, and the part at the end where Spock dies. But don't worry, he's back in Star Trek, the search for Spock.
Yes, that's how to bring the audience flooding back to the next movie, I suppose. Yeah, I agree with everything you said there, and I will say my bit after these two on the sofa. Over to you two.
Yeah, I mean, basically, as I mentioned before, and Sulu wasn't in the TV episode either. Of course, I guess the producers had to sort of push Gene Roddenberry back from the first movie, which was really only appreciated by the diehard fans. They brought in new producers, and I guess they had to. And also, not all of the cast members, like Scotty and Uhura, they didn't really want to come back, actually. And they were actually... Spock didn't want to come back either, but of course he has a death scene, so you have to do that. And because of the plot, which they've had to redo many times, and the fact that it made almost $100 million in its first week in 1982, it's pretty good. They had to change the Star Wars third movie title because of the Wrath of Khan. It was originally supposed to be called Revenge of the Jedi, and they thought that was too close to the Star Trek movie and too close to the opening, so they changed the name. But yeah, basically, except for a few minor quibbles, the special effects were very good. It's very interesting to watch a documentary on the crew that made the special effects, and they weren't all the big blockbusters in the 80s. But of course, William Shatner was worried about coming back because he was close to 50. Because the Star Trek movies were more about age and could they be just as active or close to as active in the TV show, which was the 60s. But like I said, it pretty much gave them more to do. And of course, McCoy had all the funny lines, or most of them. And it revitalized the series, although movie number 3 is good because Spock is back. And movie number 4 is good because that was very funny. And of course, it had the whales. And I saw some of them in the theaters. So the second, third, and fourth, if they didn't have it, Star Trek probably would have died, and it probably wouldn't have had as much of an impact. I didn't see the Next Generation stuff in the theaters, so I can't relate to that. But yeah, I mean, it is a pretty good movie, except for a few moments of melodrama and maybe a little bit of the plot not making 100% sense. That's fine. But this is the 80s, and movies don't have to make perfect sense. And they usually don't now. And It's basically Kirk and Khan, the cowboys, and they're fighting in space. And it is a revenge story. So considering all that, it was a pretty good story, and it wasn't a repeat of the TV show. Even though, yes, in the TV show, Kirk and Khan are face to face. So in the movie, it is a little silly that they're not. And of course, you have the Khan, but you know, I know a lot of people that love the movie, even if they're not fans of the show.
All right. Well, this is probably the most amazing story. I love The Wrath of Khan. I love the fact that they revisited the series to pull an actual character. And Ricardo Montalban was in the middle of making Fantasy Island, and he was trying to overcome his Mr. Rourkedom to regain those huge peaks and valleys of characterization that he was generating. He actually he had to like think back and like say, where was I going with this character when I first made it? And he did that, and so that was really amazing. And yes, that was his chest. A lot of people in the fandom or even in the reporters or whatever would ask, did you have augments put on? And he said no. He bulked up for it, and he did a really good job. He was quite a swashbuckler in this, and the reason that they weren't able to be in the same scene together was because one had one ship and the other had the other ship. It was impossible to put them together unless you had a boarding party or something, and that wasn't going to happen until Khan was defeated. But then the Genesis effect, and I love the special effects in this. The 3D rendering was created by the technology that they use in planetariums now. It's called Digistar, and it creates a 3D map where you can fly through, and it's in modern in terms of today's technology in 2018, you're like, well, that's old hat. I mean, we've got Google Maps and stuff, but they created this new world and the flyover of this new world before Google Maps, before that technology was there, and that was generated by Digistar. I really enjoyed the use of that, and a man that I met in film school, Ed Jones, who was an Academy Award winner for, I think, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. But this fellow was quite creative in this. He worked on this right after he worked on the Empire Strikes Back and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. He just did stuff in the optical aligning department, but yeah, and he won in 1989 for his work on Roger Rabbit, and I just think he did so much excellent work in his. I mean, he worked on pretty much everything that ILM did for 25 years. Just phenomenal. And I really think that Kirstie Alley did a great job herself. The old joke about the beer, but Alex here, he worked for that Cheers outfit in Boston, and I mean he's worked for Cheers, and so has Kirstie. So pretty much he must have worked with Kirstie, right?
No. But of course, the funny thing is, in the search for Spock, it's a different actress. Now, of course, she was supposed to be right, Robin Curtis, which I did meet her as well at a convention up here. But it's supposed to be, I guess, Vulcan and Romulan blood as well. And of course, Nimoy, it was from Massachusetts as well. And unfortunately, we can't play the video where he admits that he's from Massachusetts, but he doesn't have the Boston accent. He actually does a very good Boston accent. But we can't play that here for YouTube. But yeah, I mean, it's it's very funny how they were able to, and of course the other plot point of the movie is that Chekhov knows who Khan is when on screen he didn't meet him for Space Seed. So as Susan said, they wrote in the novels that he did bump into Khan, but he also resisted Khan, and that's part of the reason why he was on the bridge in the later seasons, is that he actually, almost fought Khan off somehow. And
from a different point in the show.
Right. So that's why you didn't see that. Sulu was, the character that played Sulu was busy in the, so couldn't be on the TV show, and they weren't permanent members, but they did, and they were back in the movies.
Yeah, there's so much to do with this movie. Another really cool thing about this story was the fact that they used the same sets over and over, like Doctor Who, like they used the same set over and over again. They redressed the set for the Defiant and the Reliant and the Enterprise. That was the same set, and all the stuff in the Botany Bay. I mean, here's this Australian reference, and I mean, it's just like it's pretty brilliant. Like the mutiny was also really cool. I just think that there's so much good stuff in A Wrath of Khan that I can't even tell you how much it meant to me. I saw it for the first time in the theater when I was a kid, and it was right after I moved back to the United States, and I was blown out of the water. It was completely amazing to me, and it still is. I mean, this is one of my prized possessions here. Anyway, over to you, Lee.
Thanking you. I too saw it in the cinema in 1982 when I was a 12-year-old, and I was blown away. And I didn't. It was a shock because I didn't know anything. I didn't know Spock was going to die at the end. That was a big shock. I was flabbergasted, shall we say? I just, whoa, hold on, you can't kill Spock off. But okay, yeah, Khan and Kirk didn't come face to face in this movie, but so what? It works well how they did it. Did they do Khan justice in the movie? I think they did. I think they developed the character even more from the TV series. He was insanely vengeful, full of revenge in this one. Blaming Kirk for the planet blowing up 6 months after he was put there. How you can blame anyone for a planet blowing up, I don't know. But it's a brilliant action-packed movie. The sort of cut down on the special effects from the first movie. That was just a special effects overload in the first movie. This one was more action, and the battle scenes in the nebula between the Reliant and Enterprise is just wonderfully done. And as I can't remember who mentioned it, it was about getting old as well. Because it was Kirk's birthday. He was turned 50 in the movie. And what does McCoy give him? A pair of glasses. I love that scene. And also the scene where the the students are taking the Enterprise out of the docking port, and McCoy says to Kirk, "Do you need a tranquilizer?" I mean, that is just an amazing moment. That, but yeah, it's brilliantly done, well acted. It is a classic, I would say.
Well, the other scene too, where Chekhov and I forgot what is it, Captain Paul Winfield's character, Khan. Gene Roddenberry did want to bring back MacGyvers, but unfortunately, the woman in real life was suffering from MS, so they didn't feel that could be done, and so that's where Khan says, "Well, my wife died," so they sort of confirmed that she died for all practical purposes, unfortunately, and could not be in the movie in real life because of MS. But of course, they also were changing the special effects because, as you said, it was overloaded in the first movie, and it cost too much money, and that's one of the reasons why Roddenberry wasn't really brought back for most of the movies, because Myers and the other Paramount executives, where they do pretty much they pretty much do consider, Paramount considers Star Trek a money-making machine, although it hasn't done as well in the last 7 years. But again, I digress, because, like I said, if it wasn't for the second movie, the third movie, and the fourth movie, the fifth movie, unfortunately, was not really well received. The sixth movie was good, and they also had good character actors in that movie as well. Christopher Plummer and a Puerto Rican character actress as the Klingons. But let me get back to Wrath of Khan. I mean, like I said, they did pretty much what they could. They tried to turn it around in basically 3 years, and they did basically improve on this movie and the first movie. So you have to give them credit for that. That, for the most part, they did fix the franchise that was off to a rocky start.
Yeah, I agree with you there. As I was saying, though, it is, for me, out of the full original Star Trek movies, the six, I do like this. I love this one. But you can shout at me now, but I do like number 5 as well. I do like the Final Frontier. It's I don't know, a lot of people don't like it, but hey ho. Right, let's favourite bits or things what you could have done without, or little tidbits. We'll say little tidbits. We'll go straight to Beef Dad, because you say tidbits, he always comes straight to mind.
It's strange that you should have mentioned you were 12 when you saw this in the cinema. That really makes me feel ancient. I was 34.
Yes, 1982, I was 12.
Yeah, I was 34. Well, I'm trying not to think about it too much. Yeah, the scene where Spock dies is just absolutely brilliantly done. And the funeral scene at the very end is it's pretty choky, but then it was pretty choky then, but of course afterwards you find out that Spock is still alive because he landed on the Genesis planet. Yeah, I can't understand why people are so anti the first film, because I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it. The concept of Voyager wanting to come back to Earth to give back the information that it had collected. It's just brilliant. And I love the special effects in it. And yes, I know they spent a lot of money on the special effects, but it was certainly worth it. Yeah. And of course, James Doohan, when he died after several attempts, his ashes were actually sent into space. He was, he was, I don't know if he was on Omaha Beach, but I know he was on the Normandy landings, and his life was saved by a cigarette case that his brother had given to him. And the bullet that would have killed him actually hit the cigarette case. Which is like, it's like something out of a film. It is like something out of a film, but it's historically accurate. I really enjoyed the bits with Spock in this. They gave him some good stuff to do. And yeah, I thought James T. Kirk was beginning to look a little bit on the ancient side. And no wonder they'd given him a desk job. Because he wasn't actually the captain of the Enterprise, Spock was. And it's just a magical film, really, for me, because it's got all of the original cast in it. And as I say, the only thing that I really missed was Margie Barrett, who played the nurse in sick bay, and you didn't get to see her. She was also the man who started it all off. She was his wife, and she actually went on to do the voice of the computer in The Next Generation.
She also played the mother of a character in The Next Generation, if I remember rightly.
I don't remember that, but I know
was it Deanna Troy? Deanna, did she play her mother?
I don't know. Did she play Deanna Troy's mother? She might have done.
She played her mother.
I'm sure she did. Yeah, she did.
Yeah, but she was the voice of the computer. I think she went on to do voice of the computer in Voyager, didn't she? Although I must confess, recently I have been binge watching Voyager because I absolutely love it. I think it's got a brilliant cast and it stayed true to the Star Trek situation, definitely. But yeah, so yes, those are my favourite bits, really. Yeah, really, really good bits.
It's always good to have Beef Dad share his tidbits with everybody. We will move on to Stephen Price. Any favourite parts or things you hated, or is it 100% love it?
It's 100% for me. I seen an interview yesterday after I watched Spacey done this Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan. The guy, forget his name again, what's the name who played Khan?
Ricardo Montalban.
When he was offered the role of Khan to reprise the role, you have to watch it, the episode he was in 3 times, because at the time when he was offered the role, he was doing that TV series Fantasy Island.
Yeah,
and he didn't want his voice from Fantasy Island in the movie. So, because it'd be, people would be making jokes or for him from Fantasy Island. So he watched it a few times and he got back into that character,
Oh yeah, what you've got to realise is it had been 15 years since he played the role.
Yeah.
Like a one-off job back in 1967, and they asked him to come back.
The other part for me is where he reveals himself and where he puts that thing in the you know, they put their helmets on and he puts that thing which goes into the ear. I can't think of the name of it.
It's some sort of like sandworm or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, brilliant he was in it. One of the best Star Trek villains ever.
I think we know what score you're going to give it later on, Stephen.
Oh, it's 10 out of 10. It's 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10.
But we'll see. Susan and Alex, any things you want to complain about, or
Okay, well, if you've noticed,
praise?
I have praise for this movie. If you've noticed, especially in the fandom and even on the Big Bang Theory, they tend to quote it wrong. Captain Spock says, logic dictates that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. And apparently from 1982 to now, it has been twisted a little bit. People are forgetting it wasn't just the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. It said logic dictates, which of course he would be. Also, just as a curiosity, which I know I don't have the perfect answer for, but Lee also mentioned it, as to who the chain of command is, because in this movie and in a few other movies, Kirk is an admiral, whereas Spock is the captain, and so is Sulu in the sixth movie. He's a captain, and he has his own ship. And then you have Scotty, who is also in command, even though he's in engineering. There's over 3 times in the series where he was commanding the bridge instead of Uhura or Sulu or Chekhov, and they were on the bridge a lot. So it's kind of interesting that Scotty was sort of, replacing when it technically shouldn't have been Sulu. And then even I wondered a little bit, as much as I like Bones and DeForest Kelly, it's funny how he doesn't seem to have a rank either. McCoy was there almost all the time. He was there 95% of the time. And I understand he hated the transporter, and they always talked about it. But he's right next to Spock and Kirk. Shouldn't he have shouldn't he be a lieutenant or something else by now? And also, is Bones a commander? Really? Okay. Well, I thought he always said he was a. Go ahead, Lee.
Well, I'm sure. Didn't he retire and then he was taken out of retirement for the motion picture?
Yes.
So maybe he lost his ranking when he retired. I don't know.
Yeah. But he always said he was a simple country doctor. He never lost it. Now, of course, dare we talk about the reboot with Benedict Cumberbatch, which I know he's a good actor, but he's not going to beat Ricardo. I'm sorry. And they even brought back, what's her name? And then they had Alice Eve topless in the movie, which... Dr. Marcus. Yeah, no.
Let me talk about Dr. Marcus. Dr. Marcus is a scientist. She's not just there as a floozy. That really bothered me in the reboot.
Yeah, not to mention he was snapping people like twigs.
Yeah.
In the reboot, where Khan wouldn't have done that. Khan would have had more class than that.
Khan did have more class than that, and Khan wasn't a white British guy. He was a Sikh, an Indian Sikh. he wasn't supposed to be, well, without a beard. I mean, like, to be honest, Ricardo Montalban didn't want to grow a beard because he was doing Fantasy Island at the time. So, you know, that was kind of, you know, shoved off to the side. And so anyway, yeah, Dr. Marcus was an incredible creative scientist, and not just some you know, daughter of some military guy. She was a credible you know, intellect with integrity, and it bothers me that they took her down 40 notches.
Well, I mean, that's the other problem too, that it didn't need to be rebooted. They could have done something else for the reboot. And the problem is also Spock going almost ballistic, punching Khan. Spock wouldn't have done that. He would have had a fight, but he wouldn't have punched him, you know. Come on, guys. I understand in the reboot they're all supposed to be younger, but come on. That's just lazy writing.
I thought we'd have got through this. I thought we'd have got through this cast without mentioning that damn reboot.
Oh no! I'm sorry, Lee.
But
I have to admit it's because I've had someone put a creature in my ear, a pincher bug in my brain, and it caused that. You know,
that's the only way. That's the only way we're going to get viewers, if we can put bugs in their brains. What nobody's mentioned about this movie is we learn Kirk has a son.
That's right too. Yep.
Not very well acted, but he has a. I think he goes to the school of Shatner.
Yeah, well, you know, the funny thing is, too, he's dressed in like a preppy tennis uniform, kind of, too. Which is, I said, wow, that's really not fitting with what everybody else is wearing.
But also, as well, we know Nimoy was fed up with Spock. He didn't want to play him anymore. Yeah. That's why he wanted to have him, you know, die at the end of the movie. But they must have persuaded him, really, you know, gave him some big bucks or saying, look, you can direct the next movie. But there's something in the movie where he dies, he goes to McCoy, remember. So did he know he was coming back? Or do we know, was Star Trek 3 already in the pipeline? Does anybody know?
I think that there was a question put before the audience, the preview audience. They let them see it without the resolution scenes and without the remember, and they were that was kind of like the worst response to a movie. It was worse than the response to the first one, to the screening of the first one. So they knew that they had to do something else.
So they knew they had to get Nimoy back to do, well, regenerate Spock again, and
they did some extra scenes, the scene in the planet and the other stuff.
Yeah. I
mean, ILM went to town on those, but yeah.
So they must have really gone to town to persuade him to come back then. He'd absolutely finished with the role after.
Yep. And he was frustrated with Paramount because Paramount had sold his likeness to Heineken in Germany, and there was commercials all over Germany, and he was making bupkis on them, and it was a big deal.
Right.
Well, sort of Germany. I mean, it was the adverts were in Germany. The brewery is in Holland, but like the adverts were there, as far as I know.
She's rambling. She's rambling.
I am.
Right then. If there's no more tidbits or anything like that.
Yeah,
should we go to
one more shout out to Ed Jones,
All right then.
who did some work on the opticals on this. Yay!
Well, you've got to give a good shout out to everybody whose name appears in the credits for the movie for making this movie. Well, I think Beef Dad's going to say something.
Yeah, Majeel Barrett died in I think about 2011 or 2009, something around there. Gene Roddenberry was already dead by that time. And their remains are being launched into space. And because of delays and problems, that's not happening until this year. This year, Gene Roddenberry and his wife will be launched into space. And she did the voice of the computer in Deep Space Nine as well. And in fact, you know the reboot that they did in 2009?
Yeah.
When they rebooted in 2009? She did the voice of the computer in that.
Yeah.
So she'd carried on right the way through everything.
Yep.
But I prefer her as Nurse Chapel.
Oh yeah, she was brilliant, and she was good as Dr. Chapel too.
Oh, yeah, because she became a doctor in the motion picture.
Yeah.
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 I mean, that's that's the other ironic thing is that with the technology, just as with bringing back the characters from A New Hope and Rogue One, different franchise, apparently they can record and keep and only slightly alter if you make recordings, and then, if you're seeing or talking, they can play that in another movie.
Okay. Well, right on. So if there's nothing else, we'll go on to final says then and scores. But before we do that, I know this isn't going out live, but today's the 20th of January, and today would have been DeForest Kelly's 98th birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, D. Kelly.
Happy birthday, Bones, wherever you are. So, yes, just a little tidbit there for you. So, let's go around for the final saying scores. Stephen Price, was you a 10 for this greatest Star Trek movie ever made again?
Yes, 10 out of 10. No problem with that. Greatest Star Trek movie ever made.
Yes, I thought you'd say that. And will Susan and Alex?
For me, definitely 10 little pincher bugs in the brain out of 10.
That's too many. You only need one. Yeah. I'd give it a 9. I mean, 3 and 4 is good. So if there wasn't 3 and 4, then this definitely would get a 12. But I'd give it a 9. And it's the franchise, and they revived it, and everybody is important in this movie, and they brought back one of the main villains for Star Trek, and they did it justice. It could have been cut a little shorter. They might have gone on too much with the trash talk, but that's okay because, like I said, it's a revenge movie. It's cowboys in space, so you got to have a little trash talking.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And Beef Dad?
It was good. It was good. I remember watching it in the cinema, and going out with a big smile on my face, and then the smile sort of disappeared when I realised that Spock was dead. And then I thought to myself, hang on, if he's landed on the planet Genesis with that thing still working and whizzing and what have you, there's a chance. So that was already going through my head at that point. So for the fact that they managed to do that, and basically they did a Doctor Who cliffhanger ending on that. And so for me, that got a 10.
Well, and speaking of, now that you mentioned Doctor Who, Tom Baker's birthday, Doctor number 4. And he made a return in a way as well. So he came back. Yeah, I mean, in Doctor Who, if you don't have Tom Baker, you take out a lot. If you don't have Spock in Star Trek, you take out a lot. You need these two actors in their franchises. Otherwise, it's just another Western with a little bit of a little bit of laser guns, and you need a little better than that.
So now it's my turn. What shall I give it? It's a good movie. I love it. I love all Star Trek. I love the original Star Trek team better than any of the other Star Trek franchise, to be honest. I'm a Kirk and Spock man all the way. So on that note, I would say I'm going to give it 10 cans out of 10. Well, that's the best shatter I could do.
Oh my gosh, that was brilliant.
Anyways, so on that note, I would like to thank Alex and Susan for sitting down and joining me today. I'd like to thank Beef Dad for being part of the furniture as usual. Here's an old poof. And poof. You put your feet on them.
Yeah, it's good coming from you.
No. Ooh, and Stephen,
I have to edit that out.
no, it's not. Don't you know what a poof is? And thanks Stephen Price for being here as well and not bringing the rain with him. So please.
What's that?
It's raining. So
It's
please leave a comment below. Just tell us what you thought of the movie. Tell us what you thought of the cast. If you want to join us, get into it. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, all of and we've got a Tumblr as well. But so the main thing is Twitter, Facebook, and please subscribe to our channel because we appreciate your support. We like to make these casts. We love doing these casts, and I hope you out there like what we do. So, and on that note, while the cat is sticking its claws into my leg, I will say bye for now. Ow.
Go.
Let's see. Ravacon. I absolutely love Ravacon. One of the best Star Trek movies ever made. I think maybe the best Star Trek movies ever made. Within the original movies, that is. Because there's 6. So it's one of the best. It's probably the best Star Trek movie within that franchise. And also, it's also probably the best revenge story out of a movie that anybody's ever made. Because mostly it's a revenge story on Khan's part. So I love this film. It's just one of the best. I would give it a 10 out of 10 rating for a Star Trek movie. Khan!
Geeks Assembled.
Hi, Geeks Assembled. It's Chase Masterson from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Live long and prosper. And thanks for supporting the Pop Culture Hero Coalition. Check us out Instagram and at our website, popcultureherocoalition.org. We are standing against bullying, and we appreciate your support.